Okay, it is. Yeah, it's going as well. Cool.
All right, welcome to the Robin and Andrew show. This is version episode 1,
Yes.
or Robin's show where I'm the first guest.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we'll see how it pans out. But essentially, I have been feeling like for a few months now a strong a strong desire to start sharing more of like who I am, what I'm interested in, and what I experience and dabble in terms of personal growth on YouTube. And I haven't done it until now, pretty much, because I just decided this was going to be episode 1. And yeah,
yes, awesome.
so yeah, let's go. Um, so yeah, we've been chatting already for a while with Andrew, and
Yes.
let's just dive straight back in, like without any particular agenda, because I don't think we need one, to be honest. I think it's just gonna, whatever we talk about is gonna flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I am feeling a bit nervous too, and I think that needs to be said.
Likewise, this is a
So,
familiar feeling.
yeah, that's cool though. So yeah, do you want to just bounce off anything that we were talking about before, and then we'll dig deeper?
Sure.
And what I want, by the way, like what I would like to happen is that we just forget we're recording within a few minutes and just like jam like we were
Right.
doing before.
Right, yeah. Well, I feel like coming back to that conversation of like intuition, like our psychic perception, connecting with those like galactic beings, the ascended masters or the great ones, as you said,
Yeah,
and like because one of the messages from the galactics that I've worked with is that like there's a difference between our bodily intuition, like our instinct, that's just like the human programming, like evolution and societal programming, and then there's like the access to higher intuition from higher intelligence, greater intelligence, or whatever, that's outside the human biology, relatively speaking.
right.
And so I'm curious, what would you speak to around that concept, access versus intuition?
Okay. So you just to make sure I get this right. For you, intuition is what's in the biology, and access is what's out.
Yeah, like a lot of people use it like intuition to mean access, like accessing higher intelligence.
Right.
But other people who don't really believe so much in that use it in the other way, like just the bodily instinct or like the snap judgments that we have.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I see what you mean. Um, yeah, I'm not. I mean, my just off the bat answer is that there isn't really a difference, because the essentially it's just the people who don't believe in the other one are just trying to like make up a story that's more believable to them, and so they're like drawing a little box around something. But the point is, they're drawing the box. This doesn't mean it's there. They're just drawing a little box because it makes them feel safer to be able to like store that somewhere and have a sense of control over it. But to me, it's all the same thing.
Okay.
It's all, and I don't really know what to call it now, intuition or access. It's all like it's a direct experience. I mean, that's definitely that. It's a direct experience of being one with everything else, and therefore having knowledge of stuff which is somehow separated in the space-time context. So I'll think of somebody and I'll be like, like so and so's going through some shit right now, and then if I phone them, I find out they are, and then you could be like, how did you know? Oh my god, intuition. But really all that's saying is that I'm not really separate from them. We're just one everything. And so it makes sense that we can like feel or experience that everything directly.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that's very much how it is, almost entirely for me. Like I feel like there is still a level of discernment to be had between like what's just my body saying something and what's also like the more expanded information coming from something wiser, that can see a little more than my body can see. But like it feels like it's integrating more and more like every day. Like the the bodily intuition is getting in tune and harmonized with and integrated with like the greater wisdom of like my oversoul or higher self, to use that, you know, that terminology. And it is becoming like less of a, like two big different things, like how it felt when it first started.
Right.
Does that make sense? Does that relate in your experience?
I guess so. I mean, I know that what's true for me is that I used to reject a lot of that stuff. Like I was saying to you earlier, I used to just kind of, for fear of being made fun of, like to be really honest, for fear of being made fun of and rejected as weird or crazy or, you know, so forth, I used to just refuse to give too much importance to a lot of the sort of higher intelligence that I had access to. Or I, you know, I just sort of kind of downplay it to some extent. Be like, no, that's not too important. And the less, like, the more I embrace it, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to create a home for you, you know, like this, this part of myself, or this thing I have access to, or these experiences I have access to, because there are experiences at the end of the day, you know, I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
I've made a conscious decision, like, to create a home for them, and that involves everything from eating differently to exercising to setting aside time for introspection, like, you know, purposefully setting aside time for introspection, to scheduling conversations like these and so forth. You know, like, that's like, it's essentially all part of building a home in my everyday life for those experiences. And yeah, it does definitely translate into it all. Like, I feel more whole, and it feels more normal too, to be talking about, you know, galactics, or, you know, energetic entities which can take possession of people, or you know, my ability to perceive vibration. Like, those are conversations I now have on a daily basis. When somebody says something, and I'll be like, I don't feel comfortable with what you just said, right? And then they'll say, why? And I'm like, well, it's vibrating, you know, it's vibrating something like, you know, fear, or it sounds, you know, the vibration of those words, or the energy with which you spoke those words, makes me feel as if, you know, it's an emotional wound who was, you know, in control of your ability to speak in that moment, and that emotional wound is, you know, like trying to make up for something. It's trying to, you know, you're trying to undermine somebody, you're trying to, like, and I can just feel my way through that. And all they said was 3 words, which weren't even like nasty or anything like that. They can be pretty neutral words on, like, face value.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite out there stuff. And yeah, I'm thinking that there's a good chance some people are going to watch this and be like, what the fuck's he talking about? But so was I clear enough for you, or did you, like?
I'm picking up what you're putting down. So yeah, I love what you said. It sounds like you speak to, like, that discomfort that you feel and that very sensitive vibrational perception a lot more than I do. Like, I'll often just, like, let it be and just kind of have my own internal process about what they may be saying that feels like off and icky to me. Okay. Instead of bringing it up, like, because I guess because most of the people that in my day-to-day, except for like a few, I don't feel like they can really, like, it would just weird them out too much if I said it that directly. But I think that's really, like, that's just a fear. Like, I could easily put it in terms of, like, hey, I feel this way about what you said.
Right.
Or, like, it seems to me like you feel this way.
Yeah, and that is, it's really important. So this is something that's like a basic thing which I still struggle with. It's definitely one of the basics, but it's really important, and I still have, like, a really hard time with it. It's just, like, how you say whatever you say is everything, essentially. Because even if, like, you meant the right thing, if you said it wrong, chances are it just won't get through. And then saying, I feel this way about what you just said, is definitely like a good way to start. I mean, with my girlfriend, we have these things all the time where, you know, you can really quickly fall into like step into a situation where you feel blamed, and then you blame the other person for blaming you, and it just kind of goes out of hand, right? And you just end up
the victim cycle, feeding each other.
Yeah. So,
but like what you said, like the nonviolent communication, where you take responsibility for how you feel with what they said to you, instead of like making it like they made you feel that way. No, it's how you've reacted.
That's where you want to start, right? And whenever I speak to my discomfort, like I think that what seems to work, at least so far, the best, is to say, I'm not feeling comfortable because I feel, you know, ... because I feel, and then really go all the way. Like I say, I'll give you an example which happened. Like we had a big argument yesterday morning with my girlfriend, and she was talking about working out, like fitness and her workout routine and stuff. And I handled this really poorly, by the way. Like this is like one of so it's a pretty good example of doing it wrong and then learning from it. But essentially, what I came to like realize after we'd had a really massive argument, and I'd taken time to journal because I was pretty upset with myself and disappointed about all that, was that I felt unsafe with the vibration that she was speaking when speaking about working out. And what it felt like is that it felt very like cold and calculating and hurtful, like in terms of vibration. And if I were to like stereotype it, it would be something along the lines of, well, I've got to work out because otherwise I'll be fat, and I hate fat people. And and you know, basically, you know, right now I look like super good, and therefore I'm better than everybody else who doesn't look super good, and therefore I'm going to keep working the fuck out. And like that was, you know, here I'm like, obviously, yeah, I'm allowing myself, if I like pretend to be what I perceived and speak, they would go something like that, right? And so I honestly feel really, really unsafe in front of, like, imagine if that was a person really speaking that way, which she wasn't, like, to be really clear, that's not what she said, and she wasn't speaking that way. But if there were a person like that, I'd feel really, really unsafe around them and just be like, you know, you clearly don't give a shit about anybody and you're not like being careful about anybody, and you're not like trying to be loving and take care of people. You just like want to destroy everyone so that you can feel important. And the best way to handle that would have been, and this is not what I did, but this is what I will do, and what I aspire to do every time would have been to say, hey, I feel really uncomfortable right now. I feel as if I don't feel safe, you know, with the energy with which you're speaking about exercising. It's making me uncomfortable, and I need something to change so I can feel okay having this conversation with you, or being close to you while you speak about this. You know, like that would have been a nice way. And then she can either say, fine, let's not talk about it, or what can I do? And then that opens up room for like a collaborative approach in which she has the opportunity to then check in with herself and take extra care to sort of, you know, be there for me in a loving way, because I've expressed my need for that or something like that. But what I did instead, and this is like one of my biggest shadows, is I just like started prodding. I was like, it feels like you're working out for the wrong reason, which is what I was feeling, but it's just the wrong, like it's not the smartest way to communicate it, right? but I didn't have the presence. I didn't have like the awareness in the moment to speak about it differently. So I said, it feels like you're working out for the wrong reason. At which point she started like dodging, right? I prodded, she dodged. She was like, no, I do, stop. Like, I don't do it for this. I don't do it for that. And kept dodging. And I was like, stop dodging me. Like, I'm speaking to something which is here. And I was getting more and more frustrated. And she was getting more and more pissed off that I kept aiming, like trying to force her to be vulnerable, essentially, which is not a kind thing to do, you know, whatsoever. And it never works. But that's like one of my biggest mistakes. And I do that. I've done that a lot, and it's never a good idea. So yeah. And at the end, it just like escalated, and we shouted at each other, and I was really angry, and she was really hurt. And then like it took some time to like calm down and come back to that conversation. And when I came back and I was like, look, well, first of all, I'm sorry for shouting at you and, you know, calling you names and all that. And second of all, this is what actually happened. I felt unsafe because I perceived this. That instantly opened up room for, you know, relating. And so we were able to to clear things up today. But yeah, what you said is really, really, really important. It's basics, but it's tough. Like, it's really tough to have the presence and the awareness to just be like, oh wait, I'm uncomfortable, and it's my problem that I'm uncomfortable.
Right.
It's not anybody's fault. It's just my like, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting dance because like I've read the book Nonviolent Communication by, you know, Marshall Rosenberg. He kind of like pioneered this whole thing. Like,
yeah,
I feel this way that when
I have it here. I'm reading it now.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So yeah. So you know, and it's like, yeah, like taking responsibility for the fact that you're creating your own feeling. Like, they're influencing it, sure, but it is you doing it to yourself, while still honoring the fact that like you don't have to put up with them like doing certain things. Like, you can remove yourself from the situation, or like stand on your sovereignty. Like, it's like the vulnerable responsibility and the authoritative standing in your space at the same time. And there's this, I remember this one thing that was really like was really key for me in the book was, it's more about revealing yourself than it is about diagnosing other people.
Yes.
Like, that helps people open up so much more. Like, I was like, hey, I feel like I feel like you don't even give a shit about how I feel right now, and I feel really hurt by that. Like, that's probably a lot easier to take than, why are you being such a bitch right now? You know?
It's so is, yeah. That's, I mean, it's so important. Like, and yeah, I mean, I'm still like grappling with that, because like I understand the theory and I do apply it like in a lot in my life already, and it's the hardest to apply when you're really, really like on edge, you know, because and that's when you need it. So yeah, that's when you need it.
That's that appears to be the journey that we're on. Navigating those edges, you know? Yeah.
That's funny that you took that book, because I literally like have it right here. It's one of 3 books I'm reading. I'm reading that one. I'm reading Conversations with God. Have you read that?
Yes. I read all 4 of them now.
Oh, okay, I'm just in the first one.
There's actually a lot of them, but
yeah.
You just on the first one? Yeah, the first one's just awesome. Like, it's great.
And then the Tao Te Ching I'm reading as well.
Yeah. I guess I've dabbled in that one. Haven't given that one its due.
It's powerful, but it's really subtle. Like, it's really so much of it is like I you know, the just like single pages, like 1-page messages or whatever, each one really short. And often I'll read a page and I'll just be like, I don't get it. And I'll read it again and I'm like, still don't get it. And then I'm like, all right, now there's something, like it's stirring something, you know? And then like, okay, it's stirring something. And sometimes, like, eventually I get it. And I'm like, wow. And it's interesting in that way. It's like a hacker. It's like shortcodes to hack into your brain. That's the way I see it. Really.
Yeah. That reminds me a lot of the Gene Keys.
I haven't read them yet, but I've been told to by my friend Kim. Yeah, she told me to read them.
that was my experience, like reading the like I read his whole introduction, like talking about the power of like contemplating things like this, like lemons, like these visions that are so powerful, and like you just kind of like you sort of think and feel around it, and like you search for the insight, almost like you're trying to open up a puzzle box, like a little velvety like jewel case or something, and like you just keep at it until like click, like it opens, and then like boom, there's the big insight, the realization, and everything like makes sense.
Yeah.
And I had that really powerfully, like reading the first 2 gene keys. Like I had this, I was like laying in bed, like half kind of taking a nap, half contemplating it. And then I had this moment where like I just had this vision where I saw like these purple and yellow genes like spiraling around each other, and like I heard this tone go off in my ears. So it was just,
oh wow,
real. I was like, okay, that's what you meant by that. So yeah, like anyway, that's my experience of that.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I've not read them yet, but I'm going to definitely. I'm just making a quick note of like the stuff we're mentioning, so I could put like links to the stuff in the bottom of the video.
Oh yes,
it's one of my ideas. I was just like, for whoever is like, what the fuck is gene keys? What the fuck is? Just put little links, and that way I don't have to listen to it all again. Although I probably will want to at some point, but maybe not before publishing. So. NVC, Gene Keys, Conversations with God, and
Sophia Code too.
Oh yeah. That one, I got that one down. Can you tell me a bit about that? Because you mentioned it, you just said it was really powerful earlier, but you didn't tell me a whole lot about like what it opens up and.
Oh, it's basically, it's a transmission from the divine feminine Christ consciousness, Christ energies.
Okay.
So it's like, we're familiar with a lot of the male archetypes, like, Jesus and Buddha, etc. But not like, we don't have as much in the mainstream anyway, of like with the feminine archetypes. So like there's all these very powerful stories and like ceremonies that you do and you read about of like, for example, Isis. She, like an Egyptian queen and pharaoh, like led like the birthing of a golden age, and she was like living an immortal life until she left to go to her star system of her choice, or ascended, and then like Hathor before her was another one, also Egyptian. And there's also like Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. I haven't gotten to that part of the book yet, but I've read the first 2 with Isis and Hathor, and they were just wow. They're just profound experiences. I really felt like I tapped into that multidimensionality. It was an initiation. Like a lot of things shifted for me. It's a very powerful book. Yeah, and just the opening story of the author is just it's kind of I don't want to say unreal, because we talked about Michael saying this is real.
Okay.
So I'm definitely willing to let what she said of how the book came to be real.
Right.
It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds cool. And what, like, so it's about the feminine archetypes of enlightenment or Christ consciousness. And,
right. Yeah.
Well, that's
Ascension, perhaps more so.
Ascension. Okay. That reminds me of Amma. Do you know Amma?
No.
She's like an Indian guru who hugs people.
Is she in Yogananda's book? I might have read about
No,
her.
I don't think so. She's around nowadays. She goes on tours of the world, hugging thousands of people every year. Oh
wow, okay.
And yeah, she was actually so getting a hug from her in 2011.
Really?
was actually one of the like really, one of the really sort of I guess it was an important moment for me. Like something shifted. It was the first time I was on my way to the States for the first time. I visited California like twice overall, once in 2011 and 12, and then another time in 2015. And it was my first like long trip by myself, like a long way away from home. And I was pretty nervous, pretty afraid. Also, I'd been pretty sick before then. I'd had like a thyroid unbalance, like a problem with my thyroid, and causing me to sweat up stuff all over my body. And so it was, you know, and I was decided to still go on my trip. Like, I was like, fuck it, I'm going anyway. Cause like I'd had that condition for a while and I was living with it and stuff. And then as I had like one night layover in London, and phoned up my uncle, who I almost never see. And he was like, I'm going to see Amma, do you want to come? And I was like, sure. I'd heard of her at that point. And I went, and, you know, we spent like the whole evening there listening to spiritual talks and stuff. Saw a load of my friends there who were actually on tour with her around Europe, which I wasn't expecting to see them at all. But suddenly, boom, I walk into a place in London and all my friends are there, like, or a bunch of them are. And then I went to get Darshan as like a hug from her. And it was incredible. It's like stronger, you know, like when you take Molly or something, MDMA, and you have like that huge, like, heart opening experience. It was like that, but without like any of the side effects, and really, really strong. And I was like, I had to like sit down afterwards. I was just like, all right, I need to sit down. I'm like, just kind of really peaceful, but like really, really. And she whispered in my ear. She like whispers stuff into your ear, probably in like, depending on what she perceives in you. I didn't understand it though, because it's not English, but I could remember the sounds, you know, they stayed with me for a while. And the next day I was just like, or even for like several days, I was just like in bliss, and like really deep bliss. I can remember like the next morning waking up and like having breakfast and then washing the dishes and like just being in total bliss and like marveling at like soap bubbles on my hand and be like, wow, like, wow. And then that I think it really helped me with that trip. That whole trip was like really beneficial in a lot of ways, but that it opened something up, that it changed me in a way which is like led me to where I am today, definitely. So yeah, and she's female and a guru who has, you know, probably hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, and spends her time, you know, she's like a mother, a spiritual mother to so many people, and she's around nowadays. So it reminded me of that, what you're saying.
That's really cool. I love that, the like hugging your way to enlightenment kind of thing.
Her story, yeah.
So
her story. So I haven't read it, like, but I've, you know, my mother's read it and a few friends of mine have. So it's like conversations I've heard about her life story is really, her life story sounds really inspiring. I think she, like, as a child, she grew up in quite a poor neighborhood, and she was really like frustrating to her whole family because she would just give everything away. Yeah. Like, she just arrived with this like open heart and desire to give and to care for. And so she just spent her, like, she would see homeless people on the street, and so she'd go home and get food and blankets and like give them to them. Wow. You know, and like from a really young age, right? And she'd just do this, like, and she never stopped. She just like was born into this way of being. And obviously it was really frustrating to begin with to her parents who couldn't understand it. But I think eventually somebody recognized her or something, or like people started to recognize like what she was embodying, and then started to follow her. And now she has like, you know, a non-profit, I think it's called Embrace the World, that has like, it turns over like millions every year, and like provides, you know, healthcare to so many people and housing to so many people. And it's really, really, it's just like, wow. And she never tried, she just gave, you know? And that's like, wow, like really, yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that. Like, she didn't try, she just gave.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's pretty easy for me to kind of get in my head and try to do the righteous thing, like the empowering thing, the loving thing, instead of more like just coming like straight from presence from the heart and just giving, and almost not even knowing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Feels more powerful and scarier too.
It is. It's disidentification is what it is. It's living from a place of I am you and you are me. I mean, that's what love is. It's like taking people for a part of yourself.
Yes.
and I sense, because I haven't read her story, so I feel a bit like, who am I to be talking about this? But my sort of very intuitive, direct perception of her and like what she does is that yeah, it's like coming from a place of just, some people would say selflessness, but it's not really selflessness. It's like wholeness, where myself includes you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like her body is just all of humanity. Not
Yeah.
just her one body.
Yeah. And that's the way it feels. I mean, my uncle still like follows her, or follow, you know, he's gone to see her many more times. I think he even went to her ashram in India at one point for a stay. So yeah, I'm excited to check out the Sophia Code anyway, and tie it into that, because it feels like something really powerful in that. Also, he this is something my uncle told me, but I it ties into what we were talking about earlier a bit too, which is, he said people who are like Amma, who are realized, I don't know about ascended, but realized, like their consciousness is expanded to the extent that they're present for you even when they're not present for you physically. So you don't need to be at an event of hers in order to be taken care of by her, you know? And so last time I saw him, he was like, like if ever you need, like if you feel in distress, like just ask Amma to hold you in your arms, you know? And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then I've tried it, and it like, as weird as this sound, it does work. It does bring forth that feeling, like, of, if I say, Amma, please hold me in your arms and never let me go, like I can feel it, you know? I feel like I'm in somebody's embrace, like in her embrace. And that led me then to that experience of speaking to the great ones, as I was talking about earlier.
I just asked for her to hug me.
Are you feeling anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling a peace, a calm, like a very gentle, warm embrace.
Yeah,
it's very wonderful.
it's pretty incredible to think, like, once you start to open up to what's possible, like it's all within reach all of the time.
Yes, it really is. We just have to believe it and desire it, allow it, you know, it's there.
Yeah, you have to have the courage to, like, the courage to sort of admit that it's possible. Like, that's my biggest, for me, the biggest obstacle for me, like really, like outright, has been, and at times still is, like admitting that it's possible and facing the possibility of rejection, of like people saying, dude, you're crazy, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, because I was so wounded by that as a kid, you know, of like that particular type of situation. But once, you know, since I have the courage to say, yeah, I do experience this experience is real, and therefore I'm going to use it, or I'm going to at least create a home for it, then yeah, it's really opened up a whole load of possibility. And what's interesting is it's true for, like, finding calm, like this, you know, if I'm stressed or worried or afraid, because I definitely am frequently, and I can just sit down and say, Amma, please hold me in your arms and never let me go. And in you know, situations where I've been afraid, I've used that, and it definitely helps. What's fascinating is it also works for like more not technical, but like learning skills. I feel like it's the best way to learn skills as well. When I was talking to you about the great ones earlier, so it's like anything you want to learn how to do that's already been done. You do have access to now through consciousness. You don't need the internet. You don't need it. The internet's like a reflection of our consciousness. But the truth is that if you just sit down with like nothingness and your intention and the courage, you know, to dive into these perspectives, you have access to literally everything.
Yes.
That's
Yes,
like,
I mean, you would have to. All is one, so there can be no separation from you in any being, any information, anything you want or need. It's
right.
got to be there, at least you know, in possibility and potential.
Yeah, well, it's there in
You might not be
potential.
that skilled to access it, or you know, there's factors involved, I suppose, but
Yeah, there's loads of factors, and I'm not saying I know everything, even though like that is the experience I'm pointing to with words. I'm saying that potentially any person knows everything, has the potential to know everything, and it's that's a bold statement, but like that's my experience, and I definitely feel that way. Then again, there's layers, right? It's quite challenging to be in that space and be in your body and be in your emotions and be scared and know everything at once. That's going to be, so, you know, there's going to be some contrast there, and there is.
well, yeah, that's kind of the reality that we're in, is one of polarity, where they're like from one book, and this may be another one you might want to look into, a powerful book, Althar the Crystal Dragon. I mean, he talks about not in the first book, but in a later one, about like creation was like, it was kind of like the reaction of like the first true selves of just pure consciousness. Like it became aware of itself, and then it asked like, wait, who am I? You know, and there was like a little bit of doubt and fear, like as to whether or not it was actually like the sovereign creator that it thought it was, and that reflected in like in the polarity of creation. So the story goes. So you've got like the fire and the water, like, you know, the yin and the yang, and there's like this little, you know, little kernel, or like, you know, the like the little mote of dust in an oyster that turns into the pearl. Like there's that sort of like a kind of the root of this level of creation, but like it's not the only one. Like, because like so many beings have like gone through like this spiritual process on earth and like woken up and like been able to remain in the body as like awake beings. Like there's now like a pathway for more and more people to actually leave the earth system and not have to stay here in the pain of the polarity, where there's like the little bit of the tiny flaw in creation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that the pain, I guess, is part of the polarity, and that never goes away. But if the suffering does, which it can, right? Because suffering is like occurs with resistance to pain.
Right. The suffering's optional. The pain is kind of part of the program.
Yeah, the pain is like, it's just here. And I don't feel the need to escape it quite so badly anymore. It's like, I can deal with it.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like it's never gotten so bad that I just couldn't handle it. You know, like if I managed to like just surrender into it in non-resistance, like it was always just manageable pain. Like I was able to deal with it, and I think I only got into like deeper states of pain just because, well, I don't even know, but probably just because I wasn't paying attention to signs to take an easier road that are more subtle before that point.
Yeah. definitely. I mean, for my case, there was always some of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's probably pretty universal. That one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That the there are moments where I feel so much bliss that I'm like, why would I ever want to leave or change anything? You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's something in that too, because there's like when the urgency to change or to be anything else than what you already are disappears, and it's like glimpses of total oneness is what they are. That's why I described them. And it's earlier on we were mentioning, I was talking about possession and how to deal with like entities that may be taking possession of you or somebody else. And remember when I said the way to deal with it is to open up to God, like call God in, so that you're just like perceiving like everything, so that God is perceiving himself through you, essentially.
Yes.
Like, and then lending, you know, obviously your ability to speak and to like all that. And if you just like, it's an experience, so it's kind of hard to put words on it, but you know, symptoms of doing it right are like a very deep sense of bliss, you know, like, so you're so happy you want to cry.
Yes, I had that just with, you know, letting Amma hug me or asking her to hug me.
Yeah, that's the one. Like, and you do that, and then you just say like, what are you doing here, like bizarre dark entity? This is not the game. Like, you know, this is, you know, we're here to play, and you know, we're not playing at creating suffering. And like at that point it just ends, like possession will dissolve instantly. And I forget where I was going with this, but I was saying that calling God in. Wait, where did it start? Remind me.
Let God in.
Before
Body,
that, well, what
that we're talking about like the bliss and
leaving, the necessity to leave, right, or to like exit the Earth system, exit the third. Yeah. And so I was thinking, essentially, those glimpses of oneness, like, as far as I'm concerned, they don't mean that I don't have shadows. I still have tons of shadows. I'm like, you know, I'm an averagely fucked up human being. Like, honestly, with like wounds and you know, unresolved emotional stuff and coping mechanisms, and yeah, you know, you name it, everything, any kind of, you know, thing that can be wrong with somebody, well, it's probably wrong with me to some degree. But that's the point, is if I'm able to perceive like the happening, to perceive like this whole reality from that perspective that just makes it like eternally blissful, doesn't mean the other stuff's gone away. It just means that it becomes a kind of cute feature of like the way things are here.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's like, you know, it's kind of like imagine going to like a really old building and eating on an old oak table, and it's all kind of split, you know, like the table's split and then dirt's got in there and whatnot, and it's irregular because people have chopped up stuff on it, and it's just like, it's basically, you know, compared to when it was brand new and polished, it's really fucked up. But then like it makes it real in a way, you know. It just makes it gives it its charm. And I think that, like, from source perspective, to use another word for God, but from source perspective, all of our fucked up sides appear like that.
Yeah, just beautiful, perfect imperfections.
Yeah, it's like artistry. It's like art, it's just wear and tear. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the necessity to ascend, then it's like an option. It's like, yeah, you could not.
Yeah, I like that. It's less of a have to or need to thing. It's like, it's if you're happy in the whole Earth system, you don't have to leave. I think we do actually have the option pretty much to be here forever. Just, in principle of free will.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I think if we really got a taste of what's beyond, we probably wouldn't stay that much longer. We'd probably leave, come back to visit, maybe leave again, maybe come back to visit when God wants us to. I feel like that's more like it. Oh,
yeah, you have a call? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to be on this soon. Hey Omar, we're just okay. Well, you just left.
All right, cool. No worries. Yeah, if you have a call with a client or something, look, we can close this.
In 5 minutes, if you have anything you want to wrap up with.
Hey, no, not really. It's fun. I really enjoyed this whole conversation, not just the part we recorded because we were chatting for a couple of hours before. I'm excited to just upload this as it is, no editing, obviously.
Cool, yeah.
If you're okay with that, of course.
Totally okay with it. Go for it.
And I'm in two minds about whether to publish it to my music channel or to make a separate channel where I talk about these things. I think a separate one might be a bit better, just because obviously people can go find what they want. But yeah, thanks so much for reaching out and wanting to chat and just jamming. It's been really good. Right now I feel like I'm swimming in a sea of potential and openness and
yes,
and yeah,
yeah, me too. I feel like I got that that hug from Amma that I think you were a part of. It's yeah, I'm feeling really good too.
Great. Well, namaste, and thank you so much. Yeah. And yeah, all the best. Feel free to reach out anytime you want to have a chat about these kind of things or anything else too. It'd be a pleasure to jam with you again.
Yes, brother.
So
let's do it.
Cool. And you're my first YouTube video. Imagine that. After months of procrastination.
Yes, I feel honored. Thank you. I mean, this is awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna get with my client and
yeah.
Go
for it. Cool. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.